Hey, everybody, this is Harriet Westmore with Women in Public Safety Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss triumphs and challenges for women who work in public safety, whether it's law enforcement, corrections, medical, firefighters, paramedics, social services, any first responders. This is about you. All right, welcome. Before I begin, I wanted to make sure that everybody hit that subscribe button if you are looking on the YouTube channel. Also, if you are listening by audio on your favorite podcast platform, please hit subscribe. All right, so today this whole month is Domestic Violence Month, and I just wanted to talk about domestic violence and how we as first responders, particularly women in work in various type of professions when we have to respond to domestic violence situations. It is a very complex, and it happens across the board. It crosses all socioeconomic, ethnicity, nationality, culturally, financial status. It just across the board, and it applies to everybody. But how do we as first responders respond to any domestic violence in our daily profession? As a state parole officer, my response is normally when the offender commits a crime while on supervision. And there has been plenty of cases where my supervisee has another case because of a domestic violence situation. And I always tell my offenders, right when they get out of prison and on supervision, that I do not, and we as parole officers or probation officers or any professional in that capacity, we do not tolerate any type of domestic violence. Domestic violence the situation itself is so complex because there was an incident that occurred, the police was called, and by the time you as the professional first responder receive that report or receive that notification that an incident had occurred, things change as far as the narrative. It's usually, well, I didn't want him to go to jail. It wasn't as bad as it was. I just called the police because I just wanted him to just leave or whatever. But people have to understand, when we see a report or when we see that an incident, we cannot just dismiss it and say, oh, well, you don't do that again. No, we're going to have to do our due diligence and investigate and follow through. Whether when a report of incident was reported, then we have to act on it. And it's a lot of times it's not in favor for the offender. And then you get pushback from the complainant witness or the victim or the survivor. They call and want to drop everything. That's not how it works. As first responders are involved, if you want to go to court and it drops and the case is dismissed out of court, we as parole officers, we still enforce a no contact order. But whether the court often dismiss the case or not, and usually because the victim failed to appear in court or there wasn't enough sufficient evidence to sustain the allegation, then the court may dismiss the case. We as parole officers, we're not so quick to do that. And it's kind of a catch-22, because if we don't do it, and if something happens, then it comes back and say, well, you saw that there was allegations and they were in court before. Why didn't you do what you were supposed to do to protect this victim from harm? So I always say, if there's a situation, and I always tell my offenders, I'm going to investigate. And that means stay away from that person. Now, I'm not naive to not know that they're going to be contact, especially, and this is what's interesting to me, while they're in custody or in jail, there's a lot of offenders who we have 5 days to do our due diligence and do investigation. We automatically put a parole hold on that person. They're not going to get out until we do our due diligence in terms of investigation. So I always tell victims and families, don't post bond. You'll be wasting your money to post bond because there's a hold. I have a hold on him. He's not going anywhere. And while I'm doing investigations, I'm looking at the whole circumstance and looking at the incident, try to get statements from witnesses and victims, and any witnesses that will happen to be, if they're available, all police reports, get body cams, 911 calls. And fortunately, in our situation, when we take this offender back to the parole board, our evidence in proving that he's guilty is a lot less than would it be in criminal court. In other words, we just have to prove by the preponderance of the evidence, meaning that more likely than not that he is guilty of this crime. We don't have to do beyond reasonable doubt. So, and if I have body cam, we go by what is said when the police arrive, to the police report, to the detectives' follow-up reports. Even the victim may not show up in the hearing, we still have that strong evidence. So more than likely, the offender will be returning back and serving some prison sanction time. So we take domestic violence very seriously because a lot of women have been unalived in domestic violence situations because of not being heard and not being taken serious. It's to the extreme to where the courts and law enforcement and first responders, we just say, well, you know what, whether it's true or not, it's more like you're guilty until proven innocent. And that's the way it is. I'm gonna give you a prime example of what my offender that I have currently on parole, what he did the right thing. There was an incident not with with the girlfriend's son, and there was a verbal altercation between he and the girlfriend's son. Essentially, according to the story of my offender, he said he just did not like the disrespect that the son was giving to his mom, and so my offender stepped in and tried to correct the situation, and the son turned on him. So rather than it escalated to where there were fight involved and all that, and where the police was called, he decided to remove himself from the situation. He just left it was her house that he was staying. And fortunately for him, my offender, he had properties that he owned within the city. He has some properties that he had prior to being incarcerated. So he just decided to remove himself from his girlfriend's house and moved to one of his houses that has been vacant. And he immediately called me and told me what happened. And he's not in trouble or anything. Police was called, and everything is good with him. There's no follow-up or anything. He did the right thing. So I'm telling people to say this: if you know that there's a situation and it's getting volatile, remove yourself from that situation, because it goes left in an instant. And again, had it gone another way to where the police were called, he would have to be taken in custody, and he would have to do further invest to find out what happened. But the fact that he took it upon himself, he took the initiative to remove himself out of that situation. Well, I'm going to live over here in one of my house, and just because I don't want any problems, I'm on paper, I know I could get in trouble. He immediately called me and told me what was going on, and that he decided to move outside the house. He and the girlfriend are still on good terms. It was the son, but no police were called, and he kind of nixed that in the bud. But to those women who are in a domestic violence situation, do not stay in a situation where you and your children are not safe, all because you want to try to save this partner. You think you see the good in him. You probably saw the red flags immediately, but you wanted to ignore that because you want to hold on to the good times or the good moments that you've had with him, or the fact that he didn't do that to you, but he did it to his previous relationships. That means he'll end up doing it to you eventually. You're no different than the past relationship. And I want people to, clearly I'm talking to young women, because I see this all the time. You look back at his history, you just get with this person, Obviously, he just got out of jail, he got out of prison, he's on paper, but for whatever reason, you see something that you wanted to have a relationship with him. Look in his past, he had a domestic violence issue, several, and it don't have to be just one. He has several, and usually he has children with another person from a previous relationship, and there's domestic violence against her. But you ignore that red flag, and well, it didn't happen to him. She's lying, blah blah blah, until maybe a month or 6 months on the road, and maybe even less than that, because I've seen that happen. Now you're calling me as the parole officer that an incident occurred that he assaulted you, but you thought that you would be exempt from what he did with his previous relationship. Usually it doesn't go that's not how it works. If he's that type of person with the previous relationship, 9 times out of 10 he's going to be that type of person with you, and you have to make that decision if you're worth more than what you're getting. And if nothing else, think about your children. Do you want to cap your children in that type of environment? That's basically, think about yourself and your children. Is this person worth you losing your self-esteem, losing your confidence, using your will, and just because you want to say you have somebody? And let's be honest, you're the one that's probably working. He's probably sitting at home taking care of the kids while you're providing the household. I'm just being honest. But I just wanted to talk about this sensitive topic. And it's an ongoing conversation that needs to be had, not just only because of its domestic violence month, but it's a 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, daily type issue that needs to be talked about and addressed. So what are your stories? If you are someone who was in a situation and you got out of it, I want to know how, and what strength do you have, what took you to finally get out of that situation. You can email me at publicsafetybywomen@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube channel, and subscribe to all your podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, and Google Podcasts. So let's please stay safe and take care of yourself before you and then your children. Take care of yourself first. Love yourself first before you can love someone else. And if that means getting that person that you are with go because they're not adding to you, they're taking away, they're depleting you, then you need to let that go. Let it go and reach out to a support system. All right. You guys take care, and I'll talk with you next week. Bye.